My name is Margaret, or Maggie as my close friends call me. I was 59 years old when I decided to remarry. It wasn't a grand affair, just a quiet vow renewal ceremony blended with a small celebration of life for my late husband Richard, who had passed 5 years earlier from a sudden heart attack. Richard and I had been married for 37 years. We built a modest life together, a small house in the suburbs, 2 sons, and enough savings to feel secure but never wealthy. After he died, the loneliness was crushing. Nights were the worst. Empty bed, silent house, memories echoing in every corner. Welcome to my channel. I share different life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and like my videos. Now, let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you'll love it if you keep listening till the end. Then, I met Robert. Robert Langley was 62, a widower himself. We met at a grief support group in the community center. He was quiet, kind-eyed, with salt and pepper hair and hands that looked like they'd seen decades of honest labor. He dressed simply, flannel shirts, worn jeans, sturdy boots. He told me he was retired, lived in a small cabin outside town, fixed things for neighbors to keep busy, and drove a 20-year-old pickup truck that rattled like it was on its last legs. But when he spoke, his voice was steady and warm. He listened, really listened when I talked about Richard, about the boys, about the ache that never quite went away. We dated slowly. Coffee turns into walks in the park. Walks turned into dinners at my place, where I'd cook his favorite pot roast and he'd bring wildflowers he'd picked himself. 6 months in, he proposed on a quiet evening by the lake with a simple gold band he'd found at an antique shop. No kneeling, no flash, just, "Maggie, you've brought light back into my life. Will you spend the rest of it with me?" I said yes, and that's when I planned the ceremony. It wasn't a traditional wedding. I called it a celebration of love, past and present. We booked a beautiful garden venue with 200 guests, old friends, neighbors, Richard's former co-workers, my book club ladies, and of course my 2 sons, Jonathan, 36, and Christopher, 34, with their families. I wanted to honor Richard with photos displayed on easels, his favorite songs playing softly, and then transition into vows with Robert. A funeral turned wedding, in a way, closing one chapter, opening another. The day was perfect, sunny, mild October air, leaves turning gold and red. I wore a soft lavender dress, nothing bridal white, just elegant and comfortable. Robert stood waiting in a navy suit that looked a bit outdated but impeccably clean. His tie was slightly crooked. I fixed it with a smile before we started. The ceremony began with a tribute to Richard. A dear friend read a poem. I placed a rose on his photo. Tears fell, but they were healing tears. Then the minister turned to the vows. That's when the whispers started. From the front row, where my sons sat with their wives and my 4 grandchildren, I heard it first. A stifled laugh, then a murmur. Jonathan's wife Lauren leaned over to Christopher's wife Sophia and said loud enough for the nearby rows to hear, "Look at him. That suit probably came from a thrift store. Mom's really scraping the bottom now." Sophia snickered, covering her mouth with a manicured hand. Retired nobody. What does he even do? Fix toilets for beer money? Jonathan chuckled openly. Mom deserves better than some broke handyman. This is embarrassing. Christopher nodded, sipping from a flask he'd smuggled in. Dad would be rolling in his grave, trading a real man for that. The minister paused, glancing nervously. Guests shifted uncomfortably. My cheeks burned, but I tried to focus on Robert. He squeezed my hand gently, his face serene. But it didn't stop. As Robert began his vows, "Maggie, you've shown me that love doesn't end with loss." Lauren stood up dramatically, her designer dress swishing. "Excuse me," she announced to the entire gathering, "but someone has to say it. This man," she pointed at Robert, "is a joke. Look at his shoes, scuffed like he's been digging ditches. Maggie, you're throwing away Dad's memory for a beggar? You're almost 60. Act like it." Gasps rippled through the crowd.
Phones came out, people recording. Sophia joined in. He's obviously a freeloader. What car does he drive? That rust bucket outside? Pathetic. Jonathan stood too. Mom, we love you, but this is insane. Dad left you comfortable. Don't waste it on some loser who'll drain your savings. Christopher added fuel. Yeah, he's not our stepdad. He's not even a real man, just a retired nobody living off handouts. Their children, my grandchildren, looked confused, but the adults at their tables, Lauren and Sophia's parents, siblings, cousins, nodded approvingly, some even clapping lightly. It was like a pack of hyenas. The garden fell silent except for their venom. 200 people stared, some in shock, some whispering agreement if they were from the sun side. Something inside me snapped. Not sadness, rage, pure white-hot fury. I pulled my hand from Robert, stood straight, and walked to the microphone the minister held. Enough, I said, my voice steady by the shaking in my legs. Jonathan, Christopher, Lauren, Sophia, and all of you who think this is entertainment, get out. Jonathan laughed incredulously. Mom, come on, we're family. We're just being honest. Honest? I repeated. You've ignored me for years unless you needed money. Birthdays forgotten, holidays skipped because we're busy with the in-laws. And now, on the day I finally find happiness again, you humiliate me? Humiliate the man I love? Lauren rolled her eyes. We're protecting you. He's clearly after your money. My money? I laughed bitterly. The money I earned cleaning offices after Richard died? The money you two borrowed and never repaid? Get out. Christopher protested. You can't kick us out. We're your sons. I can, and I am. This is my ceremony. I paid for everything. Security. I waved to the venue staff I'd hired for crowd control. 2 burly guards approached. The sons' families grumbled, gathered purses and jackets dramatically, making a scene as they filed out, about 30 people total. Lauren hissed, You'll regret this when he bankrupts you. Jonathan shouted, Don't come crying when we're proven right. The doors to the garden gate slammed shut behind them. I stood trembling, tears threatening. The happiest day, ruined. My own children. Then Robert approached, took my hands, and led me back to the altar. The other 170 guests, true friends and supporters, watched in stunned silence. Maggie, he said softly into the microphone, his voice carrying that same calm strength. There's something I need to tell you, something I've kept hidden for a reason. My heart pounded. After all this, now a secret? He took a deep breath. I'm not who you think I am. The crowd murmured. My full name is Robert Elias Langford. I am the founder of Langford Enterprises, real estate development across the Southeast. My net worth exceeds $2.5 billion. A collective gasp. Someone dropped a glass. I stared at him, mouth open. What? He smiled sadly. After my first wife, Eleanor, died 10 years ago from cancer, I saw how money changed people. Friends became borrowers, dates became hunters, even family turned distant or demanding. I sold off the flashy parts of my life, donated half my fortune anonymously to hospitals and scholarships, and retreated to that cabin. I became retired Robert to find someone who loved me for me, not my bank account. He turned to me. And I found you, Maggie. You laughed at my dumb jokes. You shared your homemade pies without knowing I owned half the orchards in the state. You loved me when you thought I had nothing but an old truck and calloused hands. Tears streamed down my face. The guests erupted in applause, supportive, thunderous. Why tell me now? I whispered. Because I wanted you to see their true colors first, when they thought I was worthless. And I wanted you to choose, to stand up for us, knowing only my heart, not my wealth. A lawyer friend of his, seated quietly in the back, stood and confirmed everything with documents projected on a screen, Forbes listings, company records. Robert Langford was legendary, a reclusive billionaire who'd built skyscrapers, luxury resorts, and quietly funded entire children's hospitals. The ceremony continued. We exchanged vows amid cheers, no interruptions this time. When we kissed as husband and wife, the applause was deafening. The reception transformed. Without the toxic group, joy filled the air. Dancing, laughter, toasts to true love. My best friend, Clara, hugged me sobbing. I always knew he was special. But the drama wasn't over. Weeks later, the fallout began. Jonathan's construction business, funded partly by loans from me over the years, started failing. Bad investments, overextension. He owed creditors hundreds of thousands. Christopher, a stock trader, had gambled on risky ventures. His portfolio crashed, his McMansion went into foreclosure. Both families lived lavishly, European vacations, luxury cars, private schools, all on credit and my occasional help. They called. First, apologies laced with excuses. We were shocked. Lauren, Sophia pushed us. Then, please. Mom, we need help, just a loan, for the kids. I refused. Robert supported me. They need to learn. Months passed. Lauren filed for divorce from Jonathan, taking the kids and half his remaining assets. Sophia moved back with her parents, citing Christopher's financial incompetence. The sons hit rock bottom. Jonathan showed up at our new home, a modest but beautiful estate Robert had upgraded us to, one rainy evening. He looked haggard, beard unkempt, clothes plain. Mom, I was wrong. About everything. I valued status over you. Please, forgive me? Christopher followed weeks later, after losing his job. We didn't bail them out immediately. Robert's financial advisor helped them declare orderly bankruptcy, negotiate debts, protect the grandchildren from the fallout. But redemption came slowly. Jonathan took a job as a site foreman, honest labor, like Robert once did. He attended financial literacy classes, sent handwritten apologies, no mentions of money. Christopher sold the fancy car, downsized, started over in entry-level trading with strict budgets. A year later, both were rebuilding. Jonathan remarried, a kind woman who valued family over flash. Christopher focused on being a present dad. We reconciled gradually. Weekly calls, then dinners. The grandchildren visited, wide-eyed at the estate, but learning from Robert that wealth is responsibility, not entitlement. Robert donated millions more, anonymously at first, then with my input. Shelters for widows, grief programs, scholarships in Richard's name. 2 years after the ceremony, we held a family barbecue. Jonathan raised a glass. To Mom and Robert, the man I wrongly called a nobody, he's more than I ever was. Christopher added, and to learning that real wealth is the people who stand by you when you're nothing. I looked at Robert, his hand in mine. From humiliation to healing, from loss to abundance, not just money, but love. Life had come full circle.